Hey everybody, once again we're working on the Honda Valkyrie. This is a 2000 Honda Valkyrie, and we did the right fork seal and now we're going to do the left. Now why would I make a video about both sides? Well, it's simple, because the internals of the fork are different from the right side to the left side. So I've already made and posted the one for the right side. You can go check that out at Raymore Repair. And now we're going to do the left side. Once again, this turn signal is held on with 5mm Allen headed bolts. Just going to let that dangle. I put these tie downs, one of these loops that I use to tie the bike down when I'm hauling it. These are made by Canyon Dancer and they're tough enough to support this thing. I've never had any issues. I haven't loosened up the triple clamp yet. I'm just loosening this up. Getting ready to go. We got to pull the calipers off. We got to remove the axle, get the wheel out of the way. Then we'll slide this fork down. Be right back. We're going to remove these two bolts to hold the fender on. And like last time, we're going to leave it attached to the other fork. That'll kind of hold it in place. Holy cow, that was tight. We're going to loosen up the fork cap before we take the triple clamp loose. That's all I want to do is crack that loose. So whenever we have it off the bike, we don't have to fight with it trying to get it loose. So we just want to crack it loose. Now we should be able just to slide this out of here. There we go. Our inspection stickers are causing us a little bit of a problem, but it slid out. We're going to go ahead and remove the fork cap. We got it off the bike and then a fork clamp or a vise. Now, similar to the other side, ooh, that smells already. Similar to the other side, there is a lock nut under here that holds the cap to the rod. We're going to drain the oil. She doesn't look too bad, but she stinks. This has got spring pressure behind it. We want to be kind of careful taking it off. Like that. And this has got a spring underneath it. This is the nut that screws into the inner fork tube. There's our fork spring. We're going to pop this dust seal off. carefully prying it back. We're not reusing this, but we don't want to damage the end of the fork tube. We can pull this back, and then there's a snap ring inside of here we need to take out. You can see our snap ring lays right inside of here. Just like that. Then we're simply going to smack this a few times and drive that seal out. Just like that. This is our outer tube. Let's set it there and let it drain. We'll flip this around. This is our inner tube. Now on this is the bottom. The axle goes down here. We have the tube, and on here we have the fork seal itself, a washer that holds the slider in, or the bushing. And then there's another bushing down here. Pry the ends apart and slide him off. We'll clean it up. We want to look at the condition of these bushings. This bushing on the outside has like a very slick Teflon type coating on it. And we want to make sure it's not worn through anywhere. This one looks really good. I just don't think it's that long since these fork seals were done. The right side was leaking bad. And I typically, when I do fork seals, I do them both. This is the other bushing. And we want to check the inside of it. This is the one that lives inside of here, and it slides right into this and sits right there below the fork seal. This one also looks really good. Don't look at the outside of it, look at the inside of it whenever you're looking at these. I don't know if I can make it focus on this or not. And you just want to look, if it's rubbed through, it'll have a copper coating underneath this, a copper colored coating. And make sure you don't see any of that. And this one's in real good shape. So no issues there. Now we'll slide that washer off. This holds that bushing in place. And it goes against the outer portion of this seal. This is the fork seal itself. And you can see there's some rust on here. And it's not in great shape, but it wasn't leaking yet like the other side was. So this is a bit of a preemptive strike on this side, where the other side, it was leaking. As a general rule, I like to do them both at once. If you take your bike to a dealership or a shop, this is the job they're doing. This is not an easy job, and it does take special tools to do it. So if you're wondering why fork seal jobs cost what they do to have done, that's why. All right, I'm going to clean all this stuff up, and I'll bring you back when I get it cleaned up. First thing that's going to go back on is our dust seal. We're just going to slide it on here, and then we're going to work it up over. That's kind of a sharp edge. Next thing is our snap ring. Next is our actual seal. Now before we start sliding the seal on, we're going to give it some lube. Kind of like that. We're going to take the bag the fork seals came in. I'm going to slide this over the end of this shaft. And we're going to work it around so it's kind of snug. And the fork seal will go on with the lettering facing out. In this case, since this is an upside down fork, that means the lettering has to go on first. If you're doing conventional forks, then it would go on the other way. The lettering goes out. We'll slide that down. That gets us past the sharp edge. Then our washer or spacer. Then our larger of the two bushings. Then the smaller bushing. Slide it up so it's in its place. Should snap in pretty snug, just like that. Then we're going to start putting these two pieces back together again. Now I did bring home some fork seal drivers. We can find one that's the right size here. It's a little big, but it's pretty close. This is a 47. We'll see if that'll fit in there. Let me turn this around so you can see what I'm doing. Now put that bushing and the washer down in there. I'm going to take these and just drive them into place. Kind of like that. Then we'll slide our fork seal down. Put it in there. Put these back on there. Slide it into place. We got our fork seal in. Next we're going to put our snap ring in. So sit down there like that. We're going to take our screwdriver and lightly push it so it snaps into place. Make sure it snaps into place all the way around, and it is. Then we'll slide our dust seal down, and we will tap it into place with our Duplo hammer as well. This hammer has plastic faces on it, and that's the reason I'm using this. It won't damage the metal, and it'll tap the rubber into place. So that part of the fork is now done. We just got to put its guts in there. Our fork spring goes in first. We have a tightly wound end and a loosely wound end. Goes in there. Then our washer. There we go. Now it's sitting right. Then our tube. This just sits inside of here, and this screws into our inner tube, and that's what actually holds the bike up. Now this has a top out spring, which is what this is. So when all this comes up and it meets this cap, it keeps it all tight. Then there's a rubber stopper that sits on the top of this. So as this shaft slides down through here, it will hit this before it hits the fork cap, and that keeps it from smacking and making noise. So I'm going to get this started, but I'm going to pause you for a minute because this is going to take a while. All right, we got that started in there. Now we need to put our oil in. We're in luck. GL 1500C. Look at that. Turned right to it the first time. Suspension. This is the left side. 744 cc's of oil. That's a lot. There goes the last of our oil in. That's down in. Stopper goes on. Our nut goes on, our lock nut. Hopefully that's kind of in focus. Make sure that's torqued to the correct amount. And we'll loosen this up, slide it up, seal up our fork. We'll tighten that up whenever we get it in the bike. All right, we're going to slide it back in here. We're going to catch under the fender. Slide it up into our top clamp. We need to make sure we got it at the right height. And the other side just has the cap showing through. So I'll do the same thing on this side. There's tight. Now we'll tighten up our triple clamp. Why do they call it a triple clamp? Well, let me tell you. They call this a triple clamp because it clamps three things. It clamps the fork, it clamps the fork on the other side, and also the steering stem. So that's why they call it a triple clamp. Clamps all three of them together. This bottom down here, this is actually the triple tree. They call it that because it has three, this fork, that fork, and the center has a tube that runs up through it. That's why I call it a triple tree, is it has a stem like a tree. And that's what attaches to this. And as always, when you're tightening something with an electric impact, make sure you go back and check it by hand. Make sure it's tight like it ought to be. Now we'll put our turn signal back on, and it's got a locator right here. It's got a tab that comes out, and the bolt for it goes right through there. So it's going to be in the right place. All right, that does it for our top. We tightened up our cap, we tightened up our triple clamp, and we tightened up the two triple tree bolts. All that's done. I've been working on Hondas for sheepers over 25 years. Let's see. Yeah. Yep, I started doing Hondas in 1994. I started working on motorcycles for a living in 1989. And we're working in my garage here because I no longer work at a dealership. So I just pedal around in my garage, and this is my bike. There's tabs inside of here, a little keeper, and that's the speedometer drive. You can put this together, but these cannot be on top of those. So when you look at it, just set them a quarter turn from each other, and it'll fit in just fine. There we go. This bolt goes in the end of the axle over here. I'll get that snugged up later. Set our calipers back on so it slides on easy peasy. Set our caliper bolts. So another place, just don't want to trust your impact. Anytime you have your brake pads off, make sure the pistons will slide in, and also make sure these slide real easy. I didn't show you very well. Make sure this caliper slides on this bracket, and you want to make sure it can slide really easy. Otherwise, the brakes will not feel as good as they should. Get our speedometer cable started in its little bracket. We'll set our brake caliper on there. Once again, should have Loctite. This axle floats on this axle until you tighten these down. So that's the idea is that you don't want this in or out. You want it to run straight, and that relieves any stress that's in the fork and makes the suspension work better. So you want to run it up and down a few times and then tighten these up. So that's what I'll do. Make sure to pump your brakes, because we did push those past the pistons in a little bit. There we go. Now I got to clean up the brake rotors. get any fork oil off of them. I'll do that with a rag and some contact cleaner. Well guys, that about wraps it up for our left fork leg rebuild on this GL 1500C. We did the right one. You can check that video out on Raymore Repair as well. We did the left one this time. We've already done the right one. So go check it out and subscribe to my channel if you would. Like the videos. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those. I will get back with you. Thanks a lot, and whatever you do, do it for the glory of God.